So we are about 6 weeks away from the MLS 25-26 season beginning, and I thought I'd make a video going through some of the best under 23 options that you can pick up for the MLS. If you do enjoy the video, please do leave it a like. If you are new around here, please do subscribe to the channel. And if you are completely new to Sorare, there is a link in the description of this video that will get you $50, pounds, or euros worth of market credits for free once you've purchased your first 5 cards from the auctions. Now, we're going to be doing our scouting over on Sorare Data as usual. I do have a discount code, which is Harry. You put that code in and you will get 10% off any Sorare Data membership. There's no other way of getting a discount if you are looking to get a star membership on Sorare Data. And yeah, if we're talking scouting, if we're talking MLS, there's no better way to start other than on Sorare Data. So we're going to go over to the scout button and we're going to go to player and card finder into the advanced search. We'll start with the most boring position, I guess, for me anyway, and that is goalkeeper. I absolutely despise goalkeepers on this game because none of them score that well, really, and it's just a random number generator half the time. But as far as the MLS under 23 keeper contingent goes, it's rather bleak these days. I gotta be honest. Like, as far as selection goes, there's just not much going on. This is literally the entire list as of right now of under 23 goalkeepers, and the majority of these, as you can see with all the zeros, aren't even starters. So, you know, the ones that we kind of know are going to be starters start really from, I mean, we'll go from top to bottom. Sorare plays for Montreal. He's 23 years old, Canadian. He's under 23 until the summer. So a lot of these keepers aren't even under 23 after July. Like, they age out, you know, specifically the MLS ones. And so, yeah, it's a weird one where I think there's literally one or two that will be under 23 after July, which of course we'll get into. But yeah, Jonathan Sorare, I mean, Montreal weren't amazing last year. They got a bit better towards the end of the season. His scores, you know, remained relatively consistent. Nice AA floor a lot of the time, 15 AA. Which is really good. A couple of clean sheets sprinkled in there as well. Obviously, everyone gets a clean sheet against Chicago. A couple of bad results here. There was a real stretch here, was that eight or 7 games there, where, yeah, it wasn't looking great for them. They were conceding multiple goals a game, but he was still managing to get a decent bit of AA now and again. Nearly 30 AA here in a 2-0 loss away to New York. Really good score considering, you know, they're losing that game. But yeah, overall, he was pretty good. You know, you got to give that to him. Start of the season wasn't great, as you can see, a couple of errors. But things did, you know, sort of get better for Montreal. And, I mean, he's a decent option. I mean, as far as his price goes, you can get him now for £50 in rare. Limited, he's £7. Now, of course, we haven't had new season cards, come out yet. We are all awaiting the new season MLS card. So, on Sorare Data, where this says new season, technically, they're not, if you know what I mean. Like, there's no new season MLS card on the platform right now. In the next couple of weeks, nobody knows when, but Sorare will release the new cards for the MLS, and there'll be like an early access, similar to what we saw with the European leagues. And so, yeah, that'll be your chance to get the in-season versions of these cards. But right now, everything's classic, effectively. So £6 is what you'd be spending on him. Now, the important thing to note is the under 23 competition on Sorare is a classic competition. You don't need the in-season version. The only upside of getting the in-season card realistically is if you're going to create a collection of that club, for example, Montreal, and his collection bonus, or, you know, his XP would benefit from that collection bonus. If you had a 5% collection on him after buying all the Montreal new season cards, then, you know, your Sorare is going to be a lot more powerful than the other Sorares in under 23, for example. But outside of that, there's not much point playing an in-season Sorare in under 23 competitions because, like I said, they're classic. Anyway, decent option. Like, he is a decent option. Of course, he does age out in July, which is an issue. Same for Schalter. Schalter ages out in July as well. Columbus were a far better team than Montreal last season. His scores, I mean, you know, they're not that dissimilar. He missed a couple of games because he was away with the American under 21s or 23s a lot of the time, so that was a bit funky. He went to the Olympics as well, I think. But yeah, as far as scores go, I mean, none of the MLS keepers really scored that well, or at least they didn't last year. That's not to say they won't this year. The fact that Columbus are a better team than Montreal doesn't necessarily mean that their goalkeeper, both under 23, of course, like, it doesn't mean they're going to necessarily score that much better. You'd like to think there's going to be more clean sheets, which definitely helps. But, look, you can see there in the last year, 12 clean sheets. If we go back to Sorare, what did he have? I'm sure he'll be similar, maybe a bit less. That's the last year. He had 8, yeah. So definitely less because he plays on a, not great team. Columbus are a lot better. But Schulte is a very good keeper. Like I said, plays for the the US under 23s and stuff. There has been rumors of him leaving though, so that's another big thing to take into consideration when I'm making this video. Like a lot of these players can still leave and move, not only in the MLS but even to Europe and stuff. A lot of these young aspiring American players do like to test the waters of getting European moves. We saw Adam Morris do that recently. Move to Borough. So yeah, don't be surprised if you're prepping for these type of things and then they end up moving on. Anyway, I've kind of skipped over these ones because Paul Walters, I don't think he's gonna have a chance at Cincinnati. Mikovic, I actually own his cards. He played a couple of games last year for LA Galaxy, but there was a bit of unrest there. Like he wasn't in the squad for a while. He was a DMP in a couple of these games. He was basically not happy with his role because they paid decent money for him. He is under 23 until 2026, which is nice because, yeah, if he weren't to get the job this year, he potentially could get it next year. But there's a bit of unrest there. I wouldn't go banking on him getting any sort of job, first team goalkeeper job anytime soon. Next up is Chris Brady, another goalkeeper that I do own. I have his rare card, and he is under 23 until 2028. So he is the exception to the rule of all these other keepers seem to age out in July. Chris Brady is the exception. Now him and Gaga Salina, who obviously moved to Chelsea, they were both at Chicago, both the exact same age, I believe. And Brady is a good keeper. I say that and you look at his scores and you go, Harry, you're chatting rubbish. But, if you watch the games, you'll realize how bad Chicago are. I mean, all these losses will tell that to you. Unfortunately, they just concede 3 goals too many times. There's only so much AA, all-around score and saves a keeper can make. If they're conceding 3+ goals basically every game, his scores on Sorare won't be good. Now, that's not to say Chicago won't get a little bit better next year. Shaqiri's left. Things have changed a lot, at Chicago. So I'm not saying it's going to get better. It might get a bit better. Does that really equate or does that translate into his scores? Probably not. And that's from somebody that owns him. I've owned him for 2 years now. I think I have a level 20 Chris Brady. I think he's a really good keeper though. He's one that could end up going to Europe at some point. Is it too early? Maybe, but he's a very, very good keeper. Celentano, another very, very good keeper in my opinion. Probably alongside Schulte, probably the 2 best Americans under 23 goalkeepers, I would say, in the MLS. Plays for Cincinnati, so a good team. As you can see, his scores are good. There's not incredible AA to be had here. There's a couple of 20s, 18s, which is nice. Decent amount of clean sheets. Cincinnati were weird, yeah, 12, so same as Schulte in the last year. And yeah, again, he is at the upper echelon of under 23 MLS keepers. But the problem is he ages out in July as well. You're going to have another under 23 keeper after that, right? It just doesn't make sense. You can't play him after July in under 23 competitions. You could play him in Challenger or whatever, but obviously can't play him in under 23. Beavers is an interesting one. Kind of got the job at Real Salt Lake for a little while. He's probably the one where, I'm no Real Salt Lake expert necessarily, but I would be quite surprised if he didn't get the starting job with, when he did come in last year, he was really good. There was more of a rotational thing going on with Salt Lake. So I think it's Zach McMath is the other keeper, a little bit older. Yeah, 2 errors there. There was definitely a rotation that you could maybe predict last year. Is it going to be the same this year? I don't think so. I'm not entirely sure if they let go of McMath or not. No, apparently he's still there for now. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Beavers definitely gets more game time than last year. They're ramping him up. He's only 19 years old. He is definitely a talent for sure. Polskamp, again, similarly to Beavers, definitely had a couple of games last season whilst Tim Melia played most of the season for Sporting Kansas City, who were terrible, to be fair. Again, will that change? Maybe, similarly to Chicago, 2 of the worst teams in the MLS, unfortunately. And yeah, it's been a while. Polskamp has had cards on Sorare for years. He's under 23 until 2025. So again, falls victim to that. Becomes not under 23 in July, but could definitely get that starting spot for the first couple of months. That is definitely a possibility with Melia leaving. I don't think there's any other goalkeepers that have been signed by them. I'm not saying there won't be, but that's just kind of where we're at right now. And then a lot of these are basically, lads that aren't going to get a sniff at all. Outside of that, there's literally not much else to really shout home about. Now, the one other thing I will, let me just make a new tab a minute. The one other keeper that might get a shot. So DC United have signed a bucket load of keepers, I believe. He isn't actually on here right now, as saying that he's signed. But there was a John bookkeeper in the name of Kim Jong-hong, maybe. 21 years old, under 23 until 2027. I'm more than certain he's signed for DC United alongside Luis Barraza, who's not under 23. He came from New York City. But anyway, played in the K-League last year, was really, really good by all accounts. I mean, his scores kind of speak for themselves as well. Some really nice scores. Again, is that going to translate to DC United? Maybe not, but the good thing is he's under 23 until 2027. So there's definitely a bit more breathing room with him. But ultimately, goalkeepers in the MLS, especially under 23, it's just a bit of a shit show, specifically after July as well. Because, it does become slim pickings. Now, defenders, again, I'd put them in the same vein as, or same category maybe as goalkeepers, whereas defenders, the choice, in under 23 MLS is very, very slim. I won't go into every single player because we'll be here for yonks, but I'll kind of just name out the players that, or call out the players that I do really like and think could score well. Maybe scored well last year, for example. Starting off with Big George Campbell. Again, a lot of these players, if they're 23 or 24, they'll probably be aging out in July. So just just make a note of that. But I love George Campbell. Held his card for years now. Had a really, really nice end to the season, to be fair. Before that, he was in and out. But has showed some real good promise in that Montreal back three. Mikhail was good for Houston. Again, ages out pretty soon. But there's some big, big scores in here. Loves the last man tackle. Doesn't mind a goal either. Some really, really interesting options there. But again, they both age out quite soon. Malanda, there's been rumours of him moving from Charlotte. He was really good for Charlotte. His scores weren't incredible. But Charlotte were the clean sheet kings for a long time. But yeah, some big scores down here. 50 AA with a last man tackle here against DC. Very consistent. Not unbelievable, but a very good defender that could play in Europe for sure. Tolkien, I really, really like Tolkien. Has a wicked free kick on him. Takes some set pieces as well, which is really vital for the Sorare matrix in general. But again, there is definitely transfer sort of worries around him. So yeah, keep an eye on that. Again, I do own a Tolkien. Thomas Aviles, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but real good player for Inter Miami. Was really, really impressed with him. They didn't keep a ton of clean sheets, but that could definitely change potentially if they drop Drake Callender, maybe the keeper. But round here, there's some massive scores from him. Real good player. Only 20 as well, so bright future ahead for him. Mosquera is a decent player. Noah LA, he lost his place towards the end of the season, but for the start of the season for the Red Bulls, he was really good. Some really nice passing stats. Ali Ahmed's not bad. Cirillo's okay. Oscar Campos is left, I think, for Mexico, I believe, or somewhere else, not the MLS. Jalen Neal's an interesting one. He's literally, as of today, just moved to Montreal. So keep an eye on this one. Really talented ex-LA Galaxy, as you can see in the picture. Literally moved to Montreal today. Didn't play as much as you'd probably like. When he did do well. But Yoshida and there was another defender, Gacares or something, or Garces, I can't remember his name. But he's a beast. And yeah, Neal found himself on the bench. Hopefully he moves to Montreal, for some playing time, because he's a really good ball playing centre half. Again, decently bright future ahead of him. Pilota's okay. Noah Allen's decent. Tevon Gray scores probably don't show it consistently enough, but definitely can peak, as you can see here. Some nice dark green scores now and again. He's a fullback. Fullbacks are just more peaky in general. They'll kill you, but they can also absolutely make you as well. There's a big variance in their score, whereas centre backs are a little bit more, calm, I would say, or I don't know, consistent. Yeah, whatever the word is for, not many peaks and troughs like he is, or centre backs normally, fit that bill. And then it gets a bit bleak, lads. As you can see, the L5s and the L15 scores are getting very yellow quite quickly, which is a sign of not many more defenders to come into this. Now, of course, players can transfer in and stuff. That can definitely happen. I thought Cody Barker was a decent defender for Seattle last year. He played a couple of games toward the start of the season. But again, I don't know if he kind of walks in this year. But like I said, it's very much slim pickings for defenders. Midfielders, there'll definitely be a little bit more action, I think. But again, I think the under-23 landscape in the MLS has definitely been diluted over the years, but that's just the nature of the game in the MLS. Like, it used to be, all the old stars come over and become DPs, which definitely still happens. But there is that now, like, sort of bridge between, like young players coming from the MLS moving to Europe. Like, that is just a thing now. And yeah, unfortunately, like, they can't keep hold of these young players because they end up getting, big £1 million moves to European clubs, and they won those type of moves as well for their careers. So it kind of makes sense, but ultimately, the MLS itself gets left with, of course, there'll be new under-23 players coming through these academies, but as far as like established players, they normally move on after a couple of years. So yeah, there's definitely that dynamic to it. But anyway, midfielders. Tang Seth has just left Rosenborg and he has gone to Nashville. He signed for Nashville FC. Some wicked scores in the Norwegian league. Now, are these going to translate exactly to the MLS? I don't know. It depends on his position in the team. Nashville have probably been a little bit short in midfield recently, behind Mukhtar, who's their sort of number 10 centre attacking midfielder. So, are we going to see these type of scores? I don't know, to be honest. Definitely not for, I say definitely. I don't think we will for sure, but definitely keep an eye on him. David Ayala, he's one of Feder's boys. Struggled with injuries, but again, he's still only 22 to be fair, and played a good chunk of Portland's second half of the season. Before that, he was coming off the bench quite often, as you can see, start of the season there. But definitely one to keep an eye on. He's a good young Argentinian player. Jack McGlynn's an absolute baller. Unfortunately, he is subject to that European move at some point, I think, because he is very, very good. Set piece taken, you just look at those scores there. It just tells you all you need to know. Serious player. Bogusz, we all thought he was going to leave. Luckily, he's one of those 23-year-olds that is under 23 until 2026, which is awesome. Great for Sorare. There was rumours he was going to go to Celtic. He didn't end up doing that, but a very, very good player. Caden Clark's another one. Moved back to the MLS after being in Europe for the last 3 years. He was really impressive when he came back to Montreal. Like, this little cluster of games here. Loads of DAs, playing in the cam position. And some really, really good AA games as well. And yeah, he's back at Montreal for this upcoming season. Don't sleep on Caden Clark. He's a very, very good player. Danny Pereira's decent. Rosales is decent as well. Plays for Minnesota. Quinn Sullivan had a bit of a breakout year for Philadelphia. Not any incredible scores outside of maybe this 88. Was played basically anywhere in midfield, across the wings as well. But his younger brother is the one maybe that we should be keeping an eye on. Caden Sullivan, who signed for Man City, like pre-contract and stuff. He'll move there when he's 18. But yeah, Caden's like 14, I think. So made his debut last year, so I'm sure we'll see a lot more of him this year for the Union. Hernan Lopez, decent player, under 23 until June. Yeah, San Jose are just not great. So unfortunately, he is subject to just not scoring that well consistently enough. But somebody that, he's a very good player. He's just playing in a really bad team, and I don't think that's going to change. Obed Vargas is unbelievable. Like, if you watch him play, he's been playing first team football since he was 16, for the Sounders. Some big scores in here, like 56 AA. Massive scores. A couple of DAs in there as well, but again, he is subject to a big move at some point, I think. So whether that happens, in January, I don't know, but there's definitely talk of that happening. Redondo's a good player for Inter Miami. Cesar Araujo's a decent defensive midfielder, but not necessarily going to get you tons of goals and assists. Bryce Duke was really fun. Like, pairing a Bryce Duke with a Caden Clark potentially, there's definitely something to be said about that. Take set pieces as well for Montreal. I really like him. I think he's a good player. Pedro Vite was okay 2 years ago, wasn't great last year. Of course, that could change. Diego Luna is an absolute baller. 21 years old, under 23 until 2028. Don't sleep on Luna, is all I'll say. But the issue is, again, very much subject to a European move. So, yeah, I own one of his cards. I'm hoping he doesn't leave, but he probably will. Youssef is decent. He came from Antwerp. Brian Gutierrez is really talented, but again, just plays on a really bad Chicago team. Can still score well now and again. Has a nice AA floor. Like, if Chicago could get a bit better, more decisives to go around, Brian Gutierrez will definitely sort of benefit from that. But unfortunately, Chicago are just rubbish. And I just don't see that changing anytime soon. Berhalter's decent. Oliver Laraz is not bad for the Rapids. Takes the odd set piece. Cole Bassett is very, very good. Had a wicked year with Colorado. It does look like he's injured right now. And he is under 23 for another year after this as well, which is great. But again, had a really good run for a long time. Started off like really hot, and then unfortunately got injured towards the end of the season. But good player, Cole Bassett. Didn't really work out for him in Feyenoord and across Europe. Outside of that, Atensio's decent, but I don't think he'll get the game time. Brooklyn Reigns is really talented. Again, don't know if he gets the game time. Saliba was captain in Montreal towards the end of the season, which is really, really interesting. Scored well in a couple of games. I own his card. I wouldn't sleep on him either. He's a very good player. All-action midfielder, really athletic, ball winner, but can find a pass as well. And he can score a goal, to be fair to him as well. But I wouldn't say he's like the best midfielder, but for the price and stuff, definitely something to keep an eye on. Edelman's really interesting. I think he's a good player. Again, similar to Saliba, though. They're not gonna be unbelievable for Sorare, as far as like goals and assists, for example. I think Barriel is going back to Cincinnati, but will definitely end up getting shipped out again somewhere. And there's Cavan Sullivan. I said he was 14, he's 15 now. But yeah, he made his debut, had a couple of minutes. I'm sure you'll get a lot more game time this year, but he's signed by City. Like, they think the world of him. He does look insane for 14, 15. Daniel Lavia, really, I don't know how to pronounce that properly. But yeah, really interesting player for Seattle. Again, more of a bench player, rotational. Don't think he'll get the minutes that you probably want him to, but definitely has like what you would want in a Sorare, scoring midfielder or good scoring midfielder. But again, not going to get the game time. Kramashi's a decent player. Keep an eye on him for Inter Miami. He's been around for a while, but Miami have a lot of options in midfield. Sakaris, I don't know how to pronounce it properly, but again, San Jose are rubbish, but he is quite interesting. He's been around since he was like 16 now in the MLS, but yeah, it just hasn't really kicked on yet. Could happen. Like 21 AA and 5-1 losses is really good. Has taken set pieces as well in the past, so definitely keep an eye on that. Carmona's interesting for New York Red Bulls, but again, I don't think he'll be at the top of anyone's shopping list necessarily. And yeah, that kind of brings midfielders to a halt, which there was a bit more quality and depth, I would say, overall. As far as if you're picking some of these under 23 midfielders up, not a ton, but there's definitely a decent amount. And then we'll finish on forward options, which I'll be honest, I'm not too sure what the landscape really looks like outside of Peck, who, to be fair, was basically the best forward in the MLS, realistically, outside of Messi, or maybe alongside Messi. 37 DAs across goals and assists. Like, guy was ridiculous. Does he move in January? Probably not. With Ricky Puig's ACL injury, Galaxy are going to definitely need Peck to, I don't know if he can even up what he did last year, but definitely maintain it. Because Galaxy were the best team in the league last year. They won the MLS Cup, and he was, a massive part of that. Peck's the best under 23 player in the MLS by a mile, so not only forward. So yeah, Peck's the man. Simple as. He's a very, very good winger. Will definitely move at some point. I just don't know if he's going to be this soon. After one season with the Galaxy, it could very well be. Like, I'm not saying it can't happen. Luca Langioni, I didn't really see too much of him, to be honest. I didn't watch a ton of New York Revolution last season, but he came towards the end of it from Boca Juniors. And, we know Boca have a very good academy and stuff. And to be fair, that's not a bad impact, considering DC basically lost everything. They won 2 games in his time, and he got assists and goals in both of those. So, yeah, definitely don't sleep on him. Like I said, I haven't seen enough of him to really, give you an amazing assessment. But those scores for 10 or so games are really interesting. And I'm sure you only have a bigger part to play next season. Arvstan, I actually won this guy's Super Rare early on last season, and I was quite disappointed. Like, when I first won him, because like this is what his scores look like, and then gets into the team, and then his scores start looking like this, which is very, very interesting. Was taking a few set pieces at Columbus Crew, was playing left mid in Nancy's system, and Nancy loved him. Played basically every game and was very, very good. So yeah, I ended up really liking the fact that I ended up winning him, but unfortunately his under-23 eligibility does run out in July or June. So yeah, you won't have him for a ton of time, but he is a decent option, but doesn't play as a forward, if that makes sense. Plays as a wing back. David Martinez is interesting for LA. Again, probably not going to play a ton of games. Julian Hall's one of the better under-20 or like really young New York Red Bulls forwards that is coming through right now. I don't think he's going to play a ton of games yet. He's only 16, but definitely one for the future. Andrade's back. Andrade, I think, signed for Toronto, I believe. This hasn't updated yet. He was in China. Did pretty well over there. Again, he does run out in June as well, his under-23 eligibility, but has played for the New York City in the past and stuff. Knows the MLS, so I don't think he's a terrible option. Marshall Rutty's a decent player. Again, though, plays as like a right wing back, not as like an actual forward. Ramiro Enrique was really good for Orlando for a long period of time. I mean, yeah, maybe not really good, but he definitely had spells where you thought, okay, if you can keep up these 80s and stuff, there's a player. He went on a massive purple patch here. Decent player. This Logan Farrington played a lot of games for Dallas now that Jesus Ferreira's left, and it does look like Velasco might be leaving as well. Yeah, keep an eye on Farrington. Definitely had a really nice stretch here, and then kind of went out the team once everyone else was fit. But 23 under 23 until 2026, you got another year and a half of under 23 eligibility. I think he could be an interesting option. I don't think he's gonna light the league up, but could come into play now that like Jesus Ferreira has left for Seattle. Doesn't show that here yet, but as far as I'm aware, that will be happening. And Velasco, another player I own. I own Jesus and I own Velasco. Velasco did his ACL like last year basically and didn't play at all apart from the last 6 or 7 games. And yeah, before that though, like he's been in the MLS for a few years now and he was a very good scorer. Like he moved from Argentina when he was very, very young. He's still only 22, but there is rumors he's going to move back. So that is an issue. Obviously he won't be in the MLS. So yeah, if he stays though, Velasco is a serious player in the MLS if he's fit as well. Abada's not bad. Obviously came from Celtic, played for Charlotte last year. Decent player. Jesus Ferreira is probably the most interesting player, I would say, outside of Peck, because he has moved, as far as I'm aware, to Seattle Sounders, who have been crying out for a player like Jesus Ferreira, I would say, somebody that can put the ball in the back of the net. He is 24 now, so he's under 23 until the summer. But, I've been a fan of Jesus for years now, and he wasn't great for Dallas last year. Dallas was shocking. Not that they've been great in previous years, but he's been a lot better in previous years. If you look at some of his, he's peaked. Like, he can score really well on this game. And I think if, he will be one of the main men for Seattle, if we're talking like attackers. And so that can only benefit him, in my opinion. Oliveira is an interesting one for LAFC. Kerwin Vargas is hot and cold for Charlotte. Sang Bin, I think, is moving back to Korea. Campana has left for somebody, hasn't he? Who's he gone to? He's gone to somebody in the MLS. I'm pretty sure it's the Revs. Could score goals. I'm sure it's the Revs. I could be correct. Well, I could definitely be corrected on that. Let me know in the comments if I've got that one wrong. But I'm sure he's moved as a DP somewhere else. Cameron Harper's okay, but again plays as like a wing back. Apoku's definitely left. I think he's gone to like Egypt or something. Outside of that though, lads, Aguiman's decent. I do like Patrick Aguiman for Charlotte. Big Duncan Maguire, was told he was going to move to Blackburn, then didn't, then was going to move again. There was a whole sort of shebang with that one, but I don't think he's that great. He's definitely not that great as far as Sorare scores go. Pedro de la Vega was disappointing last year. It came from I think it was Vasco da Gama for big money and was just absolutely horrendous. He could have definitely fallen victim to the first season curse of some of these MLS players that come in. He might get better next year, so don't sleep on it necessarily. Just be aware of it because he is a decent player, but just didn't perform that well. You can see there's a player there, but it just definitely didn't come to fruition. Ibrahim's decent for Houston. Jacob Murrell's a decent target man and quite powerful forward for DC. Again, is he going to do too much? I don't think so. Bakra, a couple of these New York boys, they're not up to too much, to be honest. Outside of that, lads, I think we could be coming to the end of potentially the video, to be fair, because there's not too much outside of that. Now, like I said, there's definitely still moves to be made. I wouldn't be surprised if there's departures and arrivals, as far as under 23 players go in the MLS. But that's kind of the landscape right now. This could change in 4 weeks' time for sure. But ultimately, as you probably have learned from that, what we've done 30-minute video, there's not a ton of amazing. I mean, there's a couple of really good options, but if I was to pick like a best 5, which we'll definitely do for the end of the video, it's tough because a lot of these players do age out in July. But if we're talking the best and you don't care if they age out by June or July, I'd say something like, you have to have Peck in there. Peck's just a certainty, isn't he? If nothing changes. I'd say Salentano's probably the best keeper, but it's not much in it between him and Scholter. As far as defenders go, again, it's rather slim pickings. If Tolkien stays, I would say Tolkien. Him or Campbell. Let's just throw Tolkien in there for now. But like I said, there's definitely no guarantee he stays. Midfield, I think Jack McGlynn's probably the one I would say gets the nod for me. And then as the extra player, you could go George Campbell if you wanted to go double defender, potentially. Outside of that, you could go Caden Clark. I don't mind that. For me, that's probably, there's definitely positions up for debate there. Goalkeeper, defender. That's probably the best you're going to get, I would say, right now. As far as like players who are in the MLS looking to start for this, upcoming season. Again, things can change. Players can move. But that's probably as good as it gets right now. Like I said, you could definitely change the keeper out for maybe Scholter, potentially. But yeah, that sets you back 40 quid right now. I don't know if that price goes up or not. I'm not really here to say it will or it won't. Obviously, we're going to have new in-season cards coming out very, very soon. Nobody knows when, but they will come before the start of the season. So, this team in season, if that makes sense, once they come out, will definitely cost more than 40 quid. But like I said, for under 23, you can play in season cards there. Under 23 is a classic only competition, as in that you don't win cash or anything there. You just win cards, which emulates how classic competitions run on Sorare. But it's interesting. I think there'll definitely be a few movements as well. But that's probably the best 5 I would say out from the players we've mentioned. I'm sure there'll be a couple that come in, like I said, and maybe a couple that I've missed as well. If there's any that I have missed that you think deserves a mention, let me know in the comment section, lads. But it's been a pleasure. I hope you enjoyed that video. Maybe it was a bit long-winded, but I hope it's allowed you to learn a bit more about the MLS. And so I'm going to be making a more generalized MLS video in the next few weeks. That will be going out to my members, my YouTube members, before it does to the public. So I'm going to be going through every single MLS team, the players I think will be really good next season, and kind of brainstorming some ideas as far as defensive stacks go, attacking stacks, for example, and going through the fixtures as well. So that'll be going out to my members before it does to the public. If you want to become a member to my YouTube channel, it's £1 a week or £4 a month. And I build your lineups for you every game week. There's a private Discord, and I do a monthly gallery review to make sure that we're getting the best out of your Sorare galleries. Hope you enjoyed the video, lads. Leave a like if you did. Comment below, let me know if you're excited for the new MLS season, and I shall see you guys in the next video.